Well, here we are, and it's a lovely day outside, at least where I'm at in my little part of the world here. I hope it's nice wherever you are too. And that means that with the nice weather comes people on motorcycles, and because it is such a nice day out, it's actually kind of hot in here. So if you hear noises and such coming from outside, it's because I do have my window cracked a little bit over here, just so I don't suffocate while I'm doing this. And you might hear the occasional motorcycle roaring by, and I might occasionally shake my fist ruefully, as I am wont to do. So just let's keep that in mind as we go about the the proceedings tonight. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me as always. Hi to everybody in the live chat. I'm going to caution everybody in the live chat, as I always do, to hold on to your questions if you have questions for me, and especially if you have super chats that you wish to contribute, which are not expected but always appreciated, of course. Hold on to all that stuff until I get through the patron questions and then come back to talk with you in the live chat, because I don't usually look at the live chat while I'm answering the patron questions. So I might miss a question that I would otherwise answer. So just hang on to your questions in the live chat until I get through with the patron questions, and then I'll turn to the live chat and we can talk about whatever you want. So first, let's answer some questions from my wonderful Patreon patrons, some of whom are here in the chat, some of whom have left questions ahead of time for me to answer, which is one of the little perks that they get to enjoy as patrons of my channel. So the first patron question this time is from Matthew Wyatt, who says, "Hey, Steve, I just listened to your Ferris Bueller review podcast and loved it. Do you really think Ferris Bueller is an example of the average Trump voter, being self-centered and little to no empathy?" No, I don't know if Ferris... I mean, it's hard to project what the politics of a fictional character would be if they were real and if it was, 30 years later. So, but if I had to guess, I would say that Ferris Bueller is not a Trump voter. I would say that Ferris is probably an extremely privileged white liberal type who has spent most of his life within this sort of bubble of privilege, and his heart is in the right place. And he probably has money because he comes from a rich family, and I'm sure he gives to many of the right causes. But he's also probably part of the problem in some ways, because he thinks that he's one of the good ones, and he's oblivious to the ways in which he is somewhat shitty sometimes. So no, I don't think that Ferris would be a Trump voter. I think he would probably be more of like an establishment Democrat who would be looking at people like, Ilhan Omar or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and going, "Oh, those kids." That's probably the kind of person that Ferris would be, I would think. I wouldn't think he would be a Trump voter, but maybe. I don't know. As you saw or heard in our late seating review of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I don't think either one of us, Jason or myself, had all that high an opinion of Ferris. So maybe he would turn out to be a Trump voter. Who the hell knows? Next question is from Francois Alikom, who says, "Did you ever consider trying to have Surly actually programmed and offered for sale? I'm pretty sure a virtual assistant with attitude like her would appeal to quite a few people. She has a nice voice, too." Well, thank you very much. I think she has a nice voice as well. Of course, it's my wonderful wife who does the voice of Surly in the Steve and Stuffy videos. And also in Surly's little cameo appearance in the last Why Did I Watch This video. I love that you think I have that ability, that I know people, or that I have some connection. I could just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, I got an idea for a virtual assistant. Make it happen." Like, that is not an option. I don't know where I would even begin. So it never occurred to me. Surly is just is a gag. Surly is a joke in videos that I write. But if I ever even wanted to have Surly actually be made and have there be a real program like that, I wouldn't even know where to begin. I certainly don't know how to do it. I don't really think I know anyone who knows how to do it or who has the money to spend developing something like that. So it's not really an option, but I appreciate the suggestion. Iced tea, by the way, since there are always people who are curious about what I'm drinking. I never drink alcohol during my live streams because I feel like this is part of my job, and you shouldn't drink during your job. It's just unprofessional. Next question from the patrons from Josa. Will the conservatives in the Supreme Court stand above partisanship? Sorry, that's disrespectful. I shouldn't. I couldn't help myself. I couldn't contain it. Will the conservatives in the Supreme Court stand above partisanship, or will they follow the Republican Party and overthrow Roe v. Wade, limit the scope of congressional power by letting Trump break the law with regards to corruption and prohibit the release of his tax returns? I know that this is a long way off, but if it would reach the Supreme Court, would they be able to see to the best of the country? Oh, boy. I would really like to believe that some of the more right-leaning justices on the Supreme Court would be able to see Trump for who he is. Unfortunately, there are at least two of them who Trump appointed himself, who I'm pretty sure got hired precisely because they would not do that, because they would be willing to roll over and let Trump do whatever he wants. Why else do you think Gorsuch and Kavanaugh are there? Like, to me, that, and I know, of course, they never said that. Trump never came out and said, I'm nominating these guys because they'll let me do whatever the hell I want. But do you really, knowing Trump, knowing who Trump has shown himself to be over the last couple of years as president, don't you think that was kind of an unofficial job requirement? So there are two votes. I feel like there are two votes in Trump's pocket no matter what. I feel like Gorsuch and Kavanaugh are going to go with whatever Trump wants no matter what, because that's what they're there for. That's the reason they got the job. Now, the other three, I don't know. With Clarence Thomas, who the hell can tell? Roberts was the deciding vote in the case that ended up upholding the Affordable Care Act. So he maybe could be trusted to do something reasonable, but I wouldn't want to bet the house on it. You know what I mean? Like, Roberts is not, Roberts is not Thurgood Marshall, so I don't know. I would not bet on it. I would not bet on it. If I were you, if I were anybody at this moment, when it comes to Roe v. Wade, when it comes to the Supreme Court stepping in and being a stop against Trump, I would expect the worst. That is my advice to anybody. Prepare for the worst. Don't bet on the Supreme Court putting a stop to it, because that's under this administration. That is not what the Supreme Court is there for. The Supreme Court is there to give Trump what he wants, and there are at least two members who are definitely going to do that. So as shitty and as scary as that is, I would expect the worst when things pertaining to this administration or to the Republican agenda find their way before the Supreme Court. Next question from John Gingras. Congratulations! You've just graduated from Starfleet Academy at the top of your class. You are given your choice of posting anywhere in the Federation. Which do you choose? Will you serve on an exploratory vessel charting the unknown sectors of space? Take a position on a lively and diverse space station? Help protect and improve a remote colony? Is it something else entirely? I'd love to hear what your dream Starfleet job would be. Ooh. What would my dream Starfleet job be? I feel like I would like something like getting posted on an outpost like Deep Space Nine. I do feel like I would want to be kind of an explorer type, but at the same time, I don't know if I would necessarily want to be stuck on a starship semi-permanently. That feels like, as awesome as that would be in one way, on another way, it would be like living on a cruise ship, and I would jump into the ocean before I got on board a cruise ship. Like, you couldn't pay me to take a cruise. So I don't know if I would want to be on a spaceship, on a starship, like long term. So maybe I would take like the Deep Space Nine assignment. And actually, if I could get specifically posted to Deep Space Nine, that would be the best. Because Deep Space Nine, I think, is the most interesting location that they ever came up with for Star Trek. So I would want to be on Deep Space Nine. Second place, my B school, my backup, would be the Yorktown station from Star Trek Beyond, because that was a really cool location. So if I can't get to DS9, then I'll just hop over to the Kelvin timeline and I'll get myself stationed on Yorktown station, because that was pretty cool too. But I think I would like a space station. Next question from David Colby. I just finished The Happiest Apocalypse. Yay! It should be hitting Amazon this summer once my editor has a chance to look it over. To celebrate, I will ask a self-centered writing question again. My Patreons, under my erotic pen name, have voted, and my new weekly series is currently To Walk the Constellations, a series inspired by seeing people be really bitchy about shipping Kylo Ren and Rey from Star Wars. So I said, fine, I'll write my own Reylo fic with blackjack and hookers. Since I wanted to sell it eventually without being sued, I ended up creating my own proprietary universe, but I've got a serious hurdle. The dark, if brooding and sexy, knight who serves the evil empire is called Lord Drac. But the name he uses when not under his ominous mask is Thale, which our heroine has learned thanks to their shared mental link, because I have to have that, honestly. But should it be Drac Thale? Or Thale Drac? Which order should I put this in? Well, if we're going by sort of standard European naming conventions, if his name as a bad guy is Lord Drac, that would imply that Drac is his last name. So Thale would be his first name. So Thale Drac works for me. Honestly, when I say them in my head and try to figure out, like, you know, which sounds better, Drac Thale, Thale Drac, Drac Thale, Thale Drac, Thale Drac, Drac, they both sound kind of the same to me. So I would go with Thale Drac. But Drac Thale is just as good. Which I know by saying that I am completely negating the answer, and I am now officially of no help to you. But I think my preference is Thale Drac. So go with that. And congratulations on finishing the book. That's awesome. Best of luck. I hope it's a success on Amazon. And I like the Reylo fanfic, and I very much appreciate throwing in the Futurama reference in the question. Okay, let me see. Next question from a patron is from John Brockman. How soon will you get a dog? John, I have no plans to get a dog at the moment. Getting a dog is not even on the schedule for the foreseeable future. So I don't know. It will probably be a very long time. I would love to have a dog. I love dogs, but I have no plans whatsoever to get a dog anytime soon. So don't hold your breath waiting for me to get a dog. I'm sorry. Next question is from Dr. Babylon. About half a year ago, I got into an argument with a Jewish man on the bus who tried to argue that morality without God is impossible, and that I actually did believe in God, but was lying to myself because I wanted to live an immoral life. He also tried to use mathematics to prove the improbability of life coming into existence by naturalistic processes, and therefore it must have been created by God. Prior to reaching his probability argument, he tried a bunch of different arguments, all of which you'd already covered on your Atheist Read series, so I was able to respond to them. After the Jewish man in his own mind had won the debate on God's existence, he went on weird self-congratulatory tangent about how much more hardworking and intelligent Jewish people are, and said something to the effect of Christians don't know how to deal with atheists, but Dawkins, Dennett, Harris, and the rest are all too scared to debate Jews. The man also claimed that the Nazis were able to take power because of a decline in religion in Germany. Then the man went on to blame the rise of white nationalism on the secularization of American society. Well, he sounds like just a big bowl of sunshine, doesn't he? Well, I don't think that secularism in and of itself was responsible for Nazism, was responsible for the rise of Nazism. I think a lot of it was anti-Semitism, and as I can't speak for him. I don't know the person, but as I dare say, the guy you were arguing with probably knows. Anti-Semitism is just as prevalent among religious communities as it is, unfortunately, among the atheist community. And anti-Semitism was a big part of the rise of Nazism and the sort of pitch of the Nazi Party to the German people, as well as resentment over the end of World War I and the economic status of Germany. There was a whole lot of stuff that went into the rise of the Nazis in Germany. So I don't think it's fair to say it's just the decline of religion, the secularization, because, I mean, Germany is a relatively secular society now. And I don't think, and the far right is ascendant in Germany as it is all across Europe and all across the world, unfortunately. But I don't think Germany is in any real immediate danger of another Nazi takeover. So, and they're pretty secular now. They're probably more secular now as a society than they were pre-World War II or pre the rise of the Nazis. So I don't think you could say secularization is a major contributing factor, at least not fairly. And as for the other stuff, the mathematical argument is ridiculous because you can't calculate that probability because we don't have all the data. How can you calculate the probability of life appearing naturally versus God having something to do with it, because we don't have enough data to compute a meaningful probability. And even if you could somehow prove that life arising naturally was so improbable as to be absurd to even propose it, that still wouldn't mean that God had something to do with it. It would just mean that we don't know the answer. It would just mean that a natural appearance of life without any sort of other mechanism is too improbable to believe. It wouldn't mean that God had to have anything to do with it. So the whole thing is just silly. It sounds like not a very fun conversation. I would not enjoy being trapped in a conversation with someone like that. But it sounds like you made it out okay at least. So yeah. But yeah, I don't buy the secularization was responsible for the rise of Nazism argument. Here's a question from JJ. Sup, Steve? This is digging way back, but I wanted to respond to your review of Star Trek V and share why I think it's an underrated movie. Sure, it's obvious to anyone who has had half a philosophical thought in their life that Kirk and the crew launched a huge adventure across the galaxy to answer a question that should have been obvious from the outset. This seems to be a common complaint about the movie. However, I think there is another level which is underappreciated. Star Trek V is a sharp and sly critique of a pervasive culture that simply doesn't get that. The materialistic monotheism that has in recent decades redefined Christianity in America. Star Trek was the perfect vehicle to explore this question. Can the anthropomorphic and historically involved God of our world religions be anything but a mortal being which, like ourselves, is subject to the problems of physical existence? Why would such a being be worthy of worship? The question is explored by showing a literal alien that manifests itself with godly powers and in a stereotypical Judeo-Christian God form, not far off the mark from actual imagery being used right now in some religious institutions to gull vulnerable people into less than noble agendas. It is summed up perfectly in the movie's iconic line, "What does God need with a starship?" I think that if more people contemplated that question deeply, the world would have fewer problems. Interested to hear your thoughts. Thank you. Well, thank you for the question, and it's always nice to have an excuse to talk about Star Trek V, because I do actually have a soft spot for Star Trek V. I tell you, as I believe I say in the review that you're referring to, I don't think Star Trek V is a good movie, but there are times when Star Trek V is the Star Trek movie I want to see, you know. So I don't know. I feel like you're putting too much in it. I feel like you're putting too much on it. I don't know if it does if it does seriously grapple with those questions. I feel like maybe you're projecting a little bit into it. I mean, everything that you say is in the movie is in the movie. Like the God that they find does turn out to be an alien that is just, megalomaniacal, and Kirk's questioning of it, Kirk's skepticism of it is a very Kirk thing to do. And I think is definitely there to sort of speak for religious skepticism and religious, sort of philosophical religious skepticism. When God asks you to do something, instead of just doing it, you think about it and you say, wait a minute, why would God need me to do that? That's, if he's God, why doesn't he do it? So, I mean, I think that's all there. I just don't think the movie is smart enough or sophisticated enough to be asking us to think about or debate these questions on its own. I think for the most part, it's just a big, silly movie with a little bit of a brain in its head, but not a lot, not a very big brain in its head. And I enjoy it ironically, and I enjoy it because I like the camaraderie that it presents between the crew, but I don't think it's a good movie at all. And I think it's great that it gives you an opportunity to think about those questions. And I think it's great that you see those things in it and that you find maybe more value in it as a film than other people do. But when I watch it, like, I don't think I'm being asked to seriously ponder those questions when I watch Star Trek V. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's something that I'm missing out on. But as I said, I mean, I do have a soft spot for it. Next question is from Katie Schmid. Hi, Katie. If someone made a movie of your life, who would play you? Now, that is a hell of a question. What's the name of that guy? I think his name, I'm going to have to look it up. You're going to have to watch me Google something, because I think I know. Yeah, okay, because I searched it earlier and I forgot his name. Okay, his name is Eddie K. Thomas, and he played Finch in American Pie. I think he looks more like me than most professional actors do, which is probably why he has not had a hugely successful acting career. I mean, he's done fine. He did all the American Pie movies. He's done a couple of TV series, and he's done other stuff. He's fine. He's like a working actor. I don't mean to shit on him. He's a working actor. He's doing great. But he's not like a superstar, and I think it's because he looks a little too much like this here, you know. But yeah, I think Eddie K. Thomas, just in terms of look, and he's a decent actor. I mean, it's not like I'm that complex of a character anyway. I think he could pull it off. When I was younger, I would have said, in all vanity, I would have said Ben Affleck. Put a beard on Affleck and just, send him out in front of the camera. There's your Steve. But obviously, I don't think, I mean, if he's too good to play Batman, he's not going to play me. So, but anyway, yeah, I think Eddie K. Thomas. I just took a glimpse at the chat. I'm not checking the chat actively, so please continue to hold your questions. But I just glimpsed at the chat and I saw Francois Alikom said Jonathan Frakes. God bless you. God bless you, my friend. Next question is from Andrew C. Hawkins. Do you have any interest in lucha libre? I've heard that it has class struggle themes, with the technicos faces often portraying working class people and the rudos, heels, as wealthy landowner types. I have a very passive interest in lucha libre. I won't say that I have a serious interest in it, because I just haven't watched that much of it. And if I had a real serious interest in it, I probably would have watched more of it than I have. Like, I've never even seen, what was it? It's the AAA's first pay-per-view. Like, I'm going way back. AAA's first pay-per-view from back in like 1993 or 1994 is considered by many people to be one of the greatest wrestling pay-per-views top to bottom ever. And I've never seen it. And if I really, really wanted to, it would be relatively easy for me to find a copy of it and make time to sit down and watch it, and I've just never done it. I've never seen any AAA show, I think, other than AAA was affiliated with Lucha Underground, and I watched the first season of Lucha Underground, but that's about it. And I've never seen like a AAA pay-per-view. I've never seen a CMLL show or even one of the smaller Lucha Libre promotions. So, I mean, I can't say that I'm that interested in it because I've never watched that much of it. But in theory, I'm very interested in it. Like, it sounds fascinating. It sounds really exciting. I've just never gotten into it. So, and I'm sure I'm very much the poorer as a wrestling fan for that. By the Lake 23 asks, in Lord of the Rings, the ring bearer's ever-loyal companion Sam tries to convince Frodo that while the world is indeed full of peril, and in it there are many dark places, still there is much that is fair, and though in all lands love is now mingled with grief, it grows perhaps the greater. Do you ever doubt that there's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for? Take me through your thought process. Well, I will do that, even though you alienated me immediately by quoting Tolkien. But But I will let that slide. I will take that one cheap shot at you for quoting Lord of the Rings in a question to me, and then I will let it go. I I have moments. I have moments of doubt when something really, really terrible happens. I'll give you an example. When there's like a school shooting or like a mass shooting in the United States, I almost always have a moment after I first hear about it where I just, you know, I just, and I think, how are we ever going to fix this? You know what I mean? Like, I see problems like that, or like the recent spate of anti-abortion laws being passed and Trump being in the White House and appointing court justices. And you see everything sort of happening before it happens, and it's not good. And there are moments where I have like a momentary despair, and I think like, we're not going to be able to fix any of this. You know, like, it's all going to shit and there's nothing we can do about it. Or there's nothing I can do about it as an individual. I'm powerless to do. I can't do any more than I'm doing. And what I'm doing is obviously not enough. So I have moments like that, but I don't stay that way for long. And I can't really explain why it is. I don't know if it's something in my brain chemistry. I don't know if it's the way I was raised, the examples I had, if I was just surrounded by optimists during my formative years. But I never completely lose hope. And I always come back to a place of, well, we have to keep fighting. And as long as we keep fighting, eventually things are going to get better. And that's what I sort of hang my hat on, you know, that, yeah, things are going to get bad. And things are going to be bad for a while, and it's going to feel like we're just swimming against the tide and we're not getting anywhere. But eventually, if we keep at it, we're going to make progress, and we're going to start to at least get things moving back in the direction they should be going. And it's discouraging to have to make up ground that you already gained and then lost, which is the situation we're in now. But as long as we are alive and as long as we're able to fight, and we keep fighting, there's always progress to be made, and we will always eventually make that progress if we just keep our shoulder to the stone, you know. So I take solace in that, you know. I take solace in that, and the certainty that the things will get better. That as Martin Luther King said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Although, you know, we have to bend it. It doesn't do that automatically. We have to do the bending, but I think we're up to it. But yeah, that's my thought process. And it does get depressing sometimes. It honestly does. But you have to try to not be overwhelmed. Here's a question from Neo-Normie Poffit, not the man who shot Liberty Valance. Why doesn't America have more parties? I thought your country was all about choice. 22 versions of breakfast eggs, 30 breakfast cereals, 400 types of pizza, 1,000 TV channels, and 2 right-wing parties, 1 center DNC, and the cloud cuckoo land of the GOP. Also, what is the best 1970s? Wow, this question took a turn. What is the best 1970s paranoia movie? Like Capricorn 1, The President's Analyst, The Parallax View, All the President's Men, Network, The Omen 1 and 2, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You might consider that as a video about how Watergate created a whole genre of fiction, even in Star Trek with the Obsidian Order, Tal Shiar, and Section 31. And even in the plot of Capricorn 1, the Andromeda Strain, and Westworld, the loonies like Alex Jones taking Michael Crichton ideas and believe fiction is fact, with fake moon landings, secret underground labs with bioweapons, and the most common paranoia of all, secret island parks for the super rich, where they can be as vicious and psychopathic without worries of the public seeing them for what they really are. Sorry, 31, not 37. Been reading Nathan Never comics, so don't worry. I corrected 37 as I read it, so you have nothing to worry about there, Neo-Normie Poffit, not the man who shot Liberty Valance. Why do we only have 2 political parties? Because for one thing, I think it's probably partially due to the fact that we don't have a parliamentary legislature, so we don't have proportionate representation. But even under our current system, I feel like we could probably still have more political parties than we have. I think the main reason why we only have 2 major political parties is because the 2 parties have colluded with each other to make sure that smaller parties don't get a fair shot. I think it's been that way for quite a while. It's been that way pretty much ever since the Democrats and the Republicans came into existence in their modern forms and became the two major parties. I feel like the two-party system it's one of the few things that Democrats and Republicans even today can agree on and continue to work together on, is to keep the two-party system sacrosanct so that smaller parties cannot get in as easily. And that's a shame, because even though most minor parties are fringe and kind of shitty, in principle, I'm completely in favor of them. I support minor parties, and I support equal ballot access for candidates who run for parties that are not the Republicans or the Democrats. I just think that's the only fair thing, and I think it's good for democracy if there are more than two viable parties. But the main reason why that isn't the case is because the two major parties have been choking everybody else down. I think that's the main that's the main explanation. And as for the best 1970s paranoia movie, I kind of got to go All President's Men, to be honest. I mean, I think All President's Men is a really, really strong movie. And the other ones, like Capricorn 1 is okay. Andromeda Strain is okay. But All the President's Men is not only a good paranoid movie, but is just a really, really good movie. And also, it's from the 60s, not the 70s, but you got to throw Manchurian Candidate in there too, because that's a great conspiracy theory, secret underground, like clandestine agenda, shadowy puppet masters pulling the strings movie. So the original All the President's Men has got to be in there too, even though it was pre-Watergate, not post-Watergate, but it's definitely a great movie of that genre. Another question from Matthew Rick. What is Jamaharon? I know it is a thing they do on Risa when you display a Horgon, but what does it entail? Surely if it was just coitus, an enlightened show would say so. So what gives? No, I think you're overthinking it. I think it's just coitus. And I think they call it Jamaharon because it's cute and it's funny that way. It's not as funny because it's indirect. That's what makes it funny. See, if Captain Picard just showed up on Risa with his Horgon that Commander Riker gave to him and said, "Here, you're going to need one of these," and then he's got the little statue guy sitting next to him while he's out trying to read his book, and women just kept coming up to him one after another and said, "Oh, hey, do you want to go somewhere and fuck?" I mean, yeah, okay, that would be a little funny, but it wouldn't be funny in the same way, right? Because it's funny because Picard doesn't know what they're after, because he doesn't know what Jamaharon is, because he's never been to Risa, and Riker didn't tell him. See, if it was just people coming up going, "Hey, you want to go somewhere and fuck?" Well, then Picard knows what it is immediately, and he just puts the thing away. But it's funnier if he doesn't know what it is, because they call it Jamaharon. So, 3 or 4 women come up to him, and they're like, "Hey, you want a Jamaharon?" And finally, he has to say, "What the fuck? Leave me alone. No, I don't want Jamaharon." And then the last one is like, "Oh, well, then you should probably put your little fuck statue away." Because that's what it means. You show it when you want to fuck. That's what Jamaharon means. So I think that's what it means. I don't think there's anything else to it. I mean, maybe there's some kind of Rician ceremony or something involved with it. I don't know. There's some kind of ceremonial handkerchief that you throw over the lamp to make the room red, or whatever people do on Risa. But I think it's having sex, I think, is what it is. If it's not having sex, then the joke doesn't really make sense. Next question is from Marla Irwin. I've watched the first 4 or 5 episodes of DS9 several times because so many people say it's the best or one of the best Trek series, but I just can't get into it for some reason. Can you recommend an episode or 2 that will help me see why so many people love it? Maybe something from a later season? Well, sure, I will, but I mean, maybe next time, instead of going back and rewatching the first 4 or 5 episodes again, you should just start at episode 6 and just see how far you get from that point. Yeah, there are many, many great episodes of DS9 in later seasons, and there's some really good episodes later on in the first season too, if you ever get that far. Duet is one of the later episodes of the first season, I think. And it's one of the best episodes of the entire series. So I would highly recommend Duet if you haven't seen that one yet. And there are some other ones too. I mean, once they get the Defiant, the Search 2-parter is a good one. There's another two-parter from later on. I think I forget one of them. One of them is called Paradise Lost, and the I can't remember what the I think it's Homefront and Paradise Lost is are the names of the two halves of the two-parter, where Cisco and Odo go back to Earth to try and track down changelings that are infiltrating the Federation government on Earth. That's a good one. The past tense two-parter from I think season 2 or season 3 is one of the best episodes of the whole show. Obviously The Visitor, which is I think my favorite episode of any Star Trek show ever, which is the second episode of the 4th season, is a great one. Trials and Tribulations is a great one. From I think that's from season 5, isn't it? What else? Or maybe that's from season 4 too. It's either season 4 or season 5, Trials and Tribulations. In the Pale Moonlight, that's a good one. Yeah, there are lots of great episodes of Deep Space Nine beyond the first season. So if you write down the titles I just said, those are good places to start. But I would also recommend, if you've only gotten 5 or 6 episodes in, however far you've gotten in so far, next time you decide to go back and give it another shot, just take those episodes you've already seen as read and just start wherever you left off and see how far you get. Because and maybe you still won't like it. And if you still don't like it, that's fine. I think it's the best Star Trek show of all of them. But if you don't, if it just doesn't work for you, that's completely fine. Like, you don't have to force yourself to like it if you don't like it. But hopefully, if you watch it and give it a chance, and maybe watch a few more episodes that do work for you more than the first 4 or 5 have worked for you so far, maybe you'll start to appreciate it too. But you know what? If you don't, that's completely fine. Next question is from General Contact Unit Problem Child. In your latest video as of Wednesday, you said that you support a person's right to get an abortion because you believe that a person shouldn't be obligated to give a part of their body to help another entity live. Suppose medical science and technology advanced to the point where a fetus at any stage of development could be removed from the mother and grown in some kind of artificial womb. Would you still support the right to abortion if it was possible to end pregnancy without ending the fetus's life? P.S. I rewatched DS9's Past Tense, Speak of the Devil. That's one of the episodes I just recommended. The one with the Sanctuary District the other day. You really should have done a Trek Actually about that episode when the border concentration camps were still news. I could still... that crisis is not over. I could still do one. In fact, Past Tense is a great episode. And if I can figure out a specific topic, a specific thesis related to it, I will definitely add it to a future poll for Trek Actually topics, because that is one of my favorite episodes of any Star Trek show. And I will definitely make a Trek Actually video about it if I can figure out a topic related to that episode. As for the abortion question, I think if that imaginary technology were to exist, I think there would be fewer abortions. I think that a lot of people who would otherwise choose to get an abortion might choose instead to have that procedure and have the fetus removed instead of just being destroyed. They would, so that it solves their problem. They're no longer pregnant. But there's all kinds of legal hurdles to, like who becomes responsible for the fetus after it is removed? Does the state take charge of the child? And if so, the state is going to have to get a hell of a lot better at taking care of foster children of wards of the state than it is right now. Because right now, the foster system is a nightmare. And to create a system where even more children would be pushed into that system as a result of this alternative to abortion procedure without radically reforming that system and giving it a lot more funding and a lot more support would be unconscionable. That's the big problem with a lot of the pro-life arguments is they want to stop people from getting abortions, but they do absolutely nothing to make the world a better place for children who are born and for parents who are stuck raising children that they didn't necessarily want, that they were sort of forced to have by the state because their options for getting an abortion were severely limited or completely taken away. I still think abortion would always have to be an option just because of bodily autonomy. But if we lived in a world where people took much better care of children, where people took much better, where it was a much more hospitable society for parents trying to make it on low incomes, and where children who were born or found themselves in a situation without parents just had a much better shot and had a much better life in store for them than children do currently who find themselves in that situation, then the pro-life, I still would not be pro-life. I still would not believe in banning abortion completely and just taking that option off the table for people. But I would find arguments for those alternatives a lot more compelling than I currently do. Because right now, the argument is basically, oh, women shouldn't be, or anybody who can get pregnant, not just women, but primarily women, but not just women. Anybody who could get pregnant cannot have an abortion, but also we're going to give them basically no help as a society in raising the child. So we're going to force you to have the child. And then once you do, sorry, you're on your own. Have a nice life. Good luck. Right. That to me is a monstrous position. And the hypothetical scientific procedure that you propose, that would create maybe a more viable alternative to abortion if there were also other systems in place to take care of all those children. But I still don't think I would be comfortable saying, okay, once that is in place, no more abortions. I still feel like a bodily autonomy argument is in there somewhere that should give people the right to decide what happens when they become pregnant. And what was the other part of the question? Past tense. Yeah, I already answered that. Past tense would be a good topic for a Trek Actually video. Next question from John Burnsy. Fuck Georgia. Or is it Alabama? Wait, or 40-odd states. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, only 10 states consider it important enough to keep it. Sad. Maybe the U.S. needs fewer states. Up here in, gotta be honest, perfect Canada, we have 10 provinces. Maybe that's it. Also, we don't have a republic. Yes, we have a democracy, but in a parliamentary system. It's never been about provinces' rights. Of course, there is that sticking point about needing to have another country's head of state to be your head of state, but she's a nice old broad, woman. So yeah, fuck Alabama and Georgia and all the other states that are just using Roe v. Wade as an excuse. And fuck the republic. A constitutional monarchy is the way to go. Otherwise, you get into all these states' rights issues, and no one wants that, right? Also, is Pat Robertson now a moderate Republican? Well, apparently on the issue of abortion, he kind of is, which just shows you how fucked our current situation is. Pat Robertson is really not a moderate anything. But yes, I suppose his position on abortion as recently articulated is technically more moderate than the one found in the newly passed laws of states like Georgia and Ohio and Alabama and Missouri. And God damn it, the list just keeps going on and on and on. The problem with shrinking the number of states in the United States is our population is so large that I don't think it would be fair to reduce it to 10, because you could definitely shrink. You could consolidate some of the Midwestern states. Like the populations are so low in places like North Dakota and South Dakota that really, those don't need to be separate states. You could probably take all that sort of northwestern plains area, of the Dakotas and Montana and Wyoming and Idaho, and just take all of that and just smash it together and make that one state. That would be fine with me because like 10 people live there. But that doesn't get you down to 10. You know what I mean? Like you could reduce the number of states, and maybe that's not a terrible idea, but I don't think you could get it down to 10 provinces like Canada has, because the population of the United States is just too goddamn big to smash everything into 10 states. But I think it's a nice idea. And I think, states' rights doesn't necessarily have to be a problem, whether we have a parliamentary system under a constitutional monarchy or whether we continue to have a constitutional republic. States' rights is a horseshit notion, no matter what kind of system you're under. The way to solve that problem is to just stop electing people and taking people seriously who wave a flag for states' rights, especially when it's almost always just a cover for we want to be racist. Because that's what it was in the beginning. I think you can solve that problem without going back into the Commonwealth. Joe McClory, do you think it's important to stop calling the right wing in the U.S. conservative and to push back when they call themselves that? I can understand the instinct to slow or even stop progress to make sure that it doesn't have an undue cost in capital or liberty, but they have gone far past that. The Republican Party is the regressive party that wants to roll back culture, and they are not even hiding it. It is time we point this out time and again. Oh, I agree with you. I think that would be a very strong rhetorical tactic, to not allow them to define themselves as conservative, because practically speaking, they are not conservatives. You say regressive. That's a fine word. I prefer retrograde. I think calling them retrograde is just, there's something about that term that is just a lot stronger to me. You know, they're not conservative, they're retrograde. But yeah, I agree. I think finding more apt terms to describe who they actually are and what they are actually doing and what they want to do would be a great idea. Don't call them conservative, call them what they are. They don't want to conserve, they don't want to slow down progress. They want to halt progress and roll it back. They want to reverse it. They want to go back to the 1950s or even further in some cases. So yeah, I think that's a completely fair point, and I think that's probably a good rhetorical tactic to point out to people that Republicans are not conservatives, that they are regressive. They are retrograde. That's what they are. That's what they are according to their policies. Here's one from some random geek. On Ask Away number 33 at 5753, you answer Larry Yellingman's question about the woodchuck who can't chuck any more wood because automation makes his woodchucking job and has to find some other job to support his family, to which you suggest the need for woodchuck income or universal basic income. To be clear, I'm not against universal basic income or UBI if it were to be implemented today. It would enhance many people's lives, provided that other services like Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, SSDI, assist housing, and food stamps weren't cut by politicians to fund UBI, since they are receiving money from the government anyway. Plus, UBI would just be a band-aid on the problem anyway, because I would ask, why is it that the woodchuck needs a job to support his family? It is because the things that are necessary to support a family, like food, water, health care, housing, and utilities, are all behind a paywall, putting a price on living or a cost of living on the necessities of life, making it sucks, meaning it sucks if you can't pay that price. Like how it sucks for our friends and comrades with their charity links down below. Yes, everybody look at the charity links in the description, by the way. Thanks for the reminder there, some random geek. And it is your own fault if you can't pay, despite automation taking the woodchuck's job, or for some of our friends and comrades being disabled and just can't work. They still have to take personal responsibility somehow. American Johnson of the channel Non-Compete did a video expressing his concern of UBI here, and I linked that in the description of this video for anyone watching who wants to go watch Non-Compete's video there, some of which I have already iterated here. Tristan Johnson of the channel Step Back History also did a quick step video on this subject as well about automation, UBI, and the end of capitalism, and then that video is also linked in the description for anybody who wants to check that out. Steve, you say you are a socialist at one point, or you agree with socialism being the workers owning and controlling the means of production, as opposed to capitalism, where it is the owning elite capitalist class that privately own and control the means of production, or the stuff that make the stuff we use. The factories, the mines, the vast, large farmland, the lumber yards, just the land. Under woodchuck socialism, the woodchucks would embrace automation, taking the chucking wood job, freeing him from a tedious and dangerous task and giving him more free time for him to spend with his family and pursue other endeavors. This would be true for all woodchucks and workers too. Ending capitalism is necessary for this to happen, which capitalism will end anyway because it doesn't have an answer to the contradictions of capitalism. Automation taking over all of the jobs would cause people to not have enough money to buy the things that the machines make, or just enough money with a basic universal income. UBI will just continue capitalism for as long as it could, much like how we got credit cards and credit in the 70s to allow workers to buy cars, houses, and stuff they normally don't have the money to buy. After all, productivity has been on the rise since the 70s, but wages have stagnated in the same time. $70,000 of college debt created a generation of slaves to the capitalist system. And UBI will keep the underclass of people oppressed by the state and the elite owning class that funds the politicians running the state. The state handing out UBI will have all the power over its citizens since they need UBI in order to live. And with automation taking over everything, the citizens or workers don't have the power to strike to shut down the system because the system will run on its own with the machines. We saw with the TSA and flight attendant strike that shut down airports, halting cargo flights that ended the partial government shutdown. General strikes can work. Direct action gets the goods. And that needs to happen before automation takes over all of the jobs, taking away the workers' power to strike and halt the system of capitalism. I think that is the better solution to the woodchuck problem that gets to the root of the problem. What do you say to all of that rambling? Comrade Steve, I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of it. I think maybe ask a shorter question next time because that was just ridiculous. It's just a really super long question. I support UBI. I support universal basic income. And I share your concerns that I would not want UBI to be used as an excuse to cut other social programs. I would not want to be in the business of giving less to poor people, or finding excuses to take support away from people who live on low income. I just don't think that's a good idea, whatever. So I would want universal basic income to provide a floor for people, but I would also want programs to be in place still for people who still needed more help. I wouldn't want to just say, okay, we got UBI, we can get rid of food stamps, we can get rid of, Medicaid or whatever. I would want universal basic income. I would want universal health care. Single payer health care would be great, and that would solve a lot of the problem as well. As I think we've talked about before, I feel like there are certain reforms that we could make to the system that we have now that would vastly improve things for people who are suffering. And I think we should do those things. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think that I think once we do those things, we should just stop and say, okay, everything's perfect and now we don't have to continue reforming. It still might be necessary to have a more radical reform, to have a more radical transition to a more truly socialist society. But in the meantime, I think it would be very smart and probably a lot more practical to support measures like UBI, like universal health care, Medicare for all, because I think those have more of a chance of getting implemented in the near term. That doesn't mean that we stop pushing for more radical changes in the long term. But in the short term, I think I would rather focus my energy on let's try to make universal basic income a viable issue. Let's try to keep pushing for universal health care and try to get those actually implemented, because I think we can actually get something like those done maybe in my lifetime. And I honestly don't think a socialist revolution is going to happen in the United States in my lifetime. And I don't think it would happen any faster if I actually started pushing for it. Doesn't mean it's not necessary. Doesn't mean it might not be better. Things might not be better on the other side of it. But practically speaking, I think it's a better use of my time and energy to focus on programs like that could exist under the current system and vastly improve things for people currently living under the system that are suffering, as opposed to going straight for we need to have a revolution, which I fear would be wasted effort at this point. I think we need to get the reforms and then keep pushing in the long term for greater changes, but I don't think we should just say, forget universal basic income, forget Medicare for all. Let's start aiming straight for the revolution. I don't think that's a practical use of our energies. Even though I share the goal, and I don't think a socialist society is like a nightmare, or I don't think socialism is a boogeyman or anything. I support that, but practically speaking, I think something like UBI or universal health care is a better use of effort in the near term. And ask a shorter question next time, please. Here's one from Benjamin Fife. What do you do when your name appears on a short list with Wil Wheaton? I will let you know when that happens. I don't think that's ever happened to me. If it has, I'm not aware of it. If your name is on a short list with Wil Wheaton, I guess it depends on what the list is. I mean, Will is a pretty good guy. I think Will is generally a nice guy. So if it's on a list of good things to be on a list with Will for, then I think you do one of these here. You say, good job. Pat yourself on the back. You must have done something right, right? Buy yourself a beer. Get yourself something nice. You know, if it's something worth celebrating, celebrate. Buy yourself something nice. Is there something you want that you've been putting off getting for yourself? You feel like, nah, I would spoil myself if I got that. Well, get it. You're on a list with Wil Wheaton. But come on, you earned it. Radical Bacon. What is more boring than live streaming doing your homework? Well, if it's this live stream, I would say just watching the live stream and not doing your homework. At least the homework would give you something interesting to concentrate on. Next question is from Madeline Poirier. I have no idea how to pronounce your last name, Madeline, and I sincerely apologize to you for that. Anyway, Madeline says, probably been asked before, but what are your theories about Star Trek Picard? Are there any specific things you'd like to see in the new series? I don't know if I really have any theories. What are my theories on Star Trek Picard? I mean, it seems like from the clues that I've seen so far, and has everybody seen the set photo? Somebody snuck in and took a little snapshot of Patrick Stewart on the set, and I don't know where. I mean, he looks like he's in like an open outdoor plaza, and there's lots of people with Starfleet uniforms surrounding him, so maybe it's like at the Academy. But he is not in a Starfleet uniform. He looks like he's just dressed in street clothes. So perhaps Picard is no longer in Starfleet, or perhaps he has been away from Starfleet for a while, or maybe he's an instructor at the Academy and he just wears civilian clothes and he doesn't wear a uniform anymore. I don't know. Patrick Stewart has hinted that he would no longer be a captain and that he may even no longer be in Starfleet. So I would assume that that's where we will find him, that he will be a civilian, he will be retired or away from Starfleet for some other reason when we find him, and there will be some reason, some crisis or what have you that will pull him back into Starfleet, that will press him back into service. That's my guess. But I don't know. I try not to speculate too much about things like that, because for one thing, that's all it is. Like I have nothing to go on. All I know is that Patrick Stewart's in it. It's called Star Trek Picard. There are a couple of other actors that they've cast for it, a couple of whom I recognize. I saw that they cast Alison Pill in it, and I've really liked her in a lot of stuff, so I'm glad to know that she'll be in it, but I have no idea what character she's playing or how big of a part it's going to be or who any of the other characters are. I know almost nothing about it, so I have nothing to really base a speculation on. As Sherlock Holmes once said, data, data, data. I cannot make bricks without mud, or something like that. I cannot make bricks without straw, or something like that. He said some smart ass Sherlock Holmes shit, and that's what I'm saying to you right now. Last question from a patron is from James Dodd, who says, Steve, when working this afternoon, I decided to put on some early TNG in the background. Code of Honor is genuinely so bad it's embarrassing, isn't it? Also, the end of Disco Season 2 was great. I need a bit of Picard to tide me over, then I can't wait to see Season 3. Yeah, I am completely with you there. I thought Discovery Season 2 was excellent, was absolutely outstanding. If you watched my review video for the second half, you saw that I said that, I mean, I think it was the second to last episode of the season when I just sort of realized, you know what, I love this show. Like, I really love this show. I'm not just watching it out of loyalty to the franchise, I'm not just watching it because I find it interesting or intriguing or whatever. Like, I genuinely love this goddamn show. And Season 2 was absolutely outstanding. It still had its problems, as I mentioned in my review. It still had some pretty serious pacing issues. And there were some other problems with it that I articulated in my review videos. But overall, I thought it was terrific. I could not wait for each new episode. I was interested in the story. I was interested in the plights of the characters. I just thought it was outstanding. And I'm really, really excited for season 3, and I'm really, really excited for Picard as well. I have a lot of confidence in the people who are making Star Trek right now. I think they've got a really solid creative team, and the franchise as it exists at this moment is just a really, really cool thing. So it's a really nice time to be a Star Trek fan. And as for Code of Honor, yeah, Jesus, that's a terrible episode. That's one of the worst episodes I think of any Star Trek show ever. That's up there with like Spock's Brain or Threshold in terms of just the absolute drizzling shits of Star Trek episodes. So yeah, it's terrible. And it's funny. I'm shooting the Tasha Yar Trek Actually video today, and that, for obvious reasons, ruminates a lot on season 1 of TNG. That's sort of the thesis of the video is how important the death of Tasha Yar was to TNG growing from the show that it was in season 1 to the show that it eventually became. That's kind of the work that I have cut out for myself in the video to explain how that happened. And yeah, there's a lot of season 1 TNG that is just not good at all. And Code of Honor is definitely the nadir of that generally very shitty season. So yeah, not a good episode. Not a good episode at all. Okay, well, that's it for the patron questions. Let me turn back to the live chat at long last. We have about half an hour left in the show before I wrap it up. I've been keeping us to 90 minutes in these for the last few weeks, and I think that's a good time limit. So let's turn to the live chat and see what people have to say. I saw a question here about the DS9 documentary. Yes, Jeremy Duncan in the live chat says, "Hey Steve, have you seen the DS9 documentary, What We Leave Behind? If so, do you think Deep Space Nine, if continued, would be as good as it was?" Yes. I saw the Deep Space Nine documentary. I did not see it in the theater. I did not go to one of the Fathom events screenings of it because there wasn't one in my local area. I would have had to drive down close to DC to see it. But I saw it because I was a Kickstarter backer. I saw it on the backer, the sort of early release stream that they had earlier this month. And so I got to see it, and it was outstanding. I thought it was just excellent. If you are a Deep Space Nine fan, I can't imagine you not liking it. And just as a film, as a documentary, it was very interesting. So I thought it was outstanding. If you are a Star Trek fan and you have a chance to see it, whether during one of the theatrical screenings, which I think are over now actually, or when it comes out on Blu-ray or streaming somewhere, absolutely make an effort to see it because it is really, really good. I really liked it. I just got a super chat here from Master Alex that I want to mention before I go back to some of the other questions. When will we see Millicent and Michael Worley in a theological debate? Son of Busco versus OTC. That would be a clash of the titans. I have no plans to do that ever, but that would be a clash of the titans if that ever happened. Millicent is probably the only debate partner that would be strong enough to possibly break through the thick, icy shell of self-delusion and narcissism that surrounds Michael Worley. So that would be a hell of a crossover. Christopher, my friend who is my co-host on Pierre the Chef, who has also been a writing partner on these Worley videos recently. We've been sort of breaking down stories together, and he came up with an idea just the other day for a potential future crossover between the Worley videos and other videos that I've done on the channel. But that will probably, if that ever happens, that probably won't happen for a long time. But we probably won't do the the crossover. Oh, Madeline, I see. I'm so sorry I mispronounced your name. I tried a couple of different variations, and it just I hope I got it somewhere in the ballpark with one of those. All right, let me back up a little bit and see some more of the questions in the chat. Some random geek. What movie got its title from the novel Gone with the Wind? I have no idea. What movie got its title from the novel Gone with the Wind? I don't know. I have no idea.
Oh, William Clapp, if you want bad Star Trek, watch the end of the second season of TNG. Yeah, that was the clip show, right, that they had to do because of the writer's strike. Yeah, that's a terrible episode. I believe the only clip show in the history of Star Trek, and they did it out of absolute necessity because they needed another show and they didn't. There was a writer's strike and they just couldn't do it any other way. Yeah, terrible episode. Radical Bacon, have you seen Ollie's new video? The answer is no. That's correct. I have not seen it. I have been busy all day. I was this morning and this afternoon. I was shooting green screen stuff for the next Trek Actually video, and then after we're done with this, I need to pack all this stuff away and set up in here to do more stuff for the Trek Actually video in front of the normal setup of the monitor and the camera in here. So now I probably won't have time to watch Ollie's video at all today, but I'm going to try to watch it as soon as I can. Let me see what other questions we have. Joe McClory, do you think that if the procedure in Problem Child's question did exist, that it would be a compromise the pro-life movement would accept, or would they still try to make women complete pregnancy? Oh, I think some of them would still try to make women complete pregnancy. I'm sure some of them would find it acceptable, but I think others, because I don't think it's certainly not about the life of babies. It's not about, they say that, oh, it's about the preciousness, the sanctity of life. Clearly that's not it, because they don't give a fuck what happens to you after you're born. It's about imposing their morality, their mostly religiously derived morality, their very hardcore right-wing fundamentalist interpretation of Christianity, imposing that on other people. Like, that's the point. Abortion is just the issue that they are using to express that. What matters to them is the control. What matters to them is getting their particular version of their religion's morality written into law. I think that is ultimately the point. For 99% of really hardcore, dedicated anti-abortion people, that is the point. They say it's about abortion. They say it's about protecting the sanctity of life. They say it's about the unborn. I don't think they give a shit about any of that. I think they care about having their morality written into law. So I think those would. I don't think that procedure would move that many people, to be honest. I'm sure some would find it acceptable. There are more moderate pro-life people who would probably find it acceptable, but the real hardcore, conservative fundamentalist Christians, I think they would still be trying to ban abortion completely. Well, here's one. I just got another super chat from Humbilly. Hi, Humbilly. Yup, code of honor is terrible. Of course, they get it right with conspiracy and never follow up. Denise wanted to leave the show because of the writing. Yes, she did. Unfortunately, that is the reason why Denise Crosby left the show and why they had to kill poor Tasha. Although, as I say in my Trek Actually video, which I'm working on right now, that it turned out to be a good thing for the show. But yeah, that's why Tasha left the show, because she did not. she was like, "You're not giving me a character to play. I'm just gonna go do something else." Sean Hartley. Hi, Steve. I recently discovered and followed your cat-filled Instagram. My question for you is, would you say Star Trek is a dystopian or utopian future? For the Federation, it's utopian. For perhaps other societies that we glimpse, that you could call them dystopian, but I think generally speaking, the life that most of the point of view characters live in the shows, I would say that it's utopian. Tanya Gibbs, hey Steve, have you talked about the Ferengi before? On DS9, how do they make money if the station follows Federation rules? I am going to find a way to do a Trek Actually video about that. I think I have a topic in the list that I'll probably put on the Patreon poll at some point, and hopefully it'll get picked one of these days. That it's something like how do the economics of Star Trek actually work? But that's a title. That's not really a premise. It's still a little flabby. But if I can figure out a specific question or a specific premise, or find a particular episode that I have a good take on to be sort of the spine for a Trek Actually video, I would love to explore that, because that fascinates me too. The economy of the Federation is completely moneyless, and the Ferengi are a ruthless capitalist society where they value money more than anything else. So how do they trade? They have relations. We know that they have trade relations. They work together. They buy and sell. So How does that work? How does a moneyless society interact with a capitalist society that values money above everything else? I would love to explore that because that is fascinating to me. Trans Gamer Girl, did you see the tweet I tagged you in about the pedo priest who got 60 years off his sentence for being a good Christian man? I, for one, despair that things like that still happen. Yeah, it is. For some reason, there are certain people who are just, they just default to finding excuses for people from certain categories doing absolutely shitty things. You see it with things like that. We're like, oh, he was a good Christian. Otherwise, he slipped a little bit, you know. He was a good Christian other than this. So we need to cut him a break. Or the fucking what's his name, Brock Turner, the swimmer rapist, whose parents were like, oh, don't let this destroy his life. He's a good boy. He's a good boy who raped somebody behind a dumpster. But he's a good boy. That shouldn't define him, right? There's a lot of that goes around, and it is unfortunate because it encourages people to show more empathy for the abuser, for the criminal, for the rapist, for the pedophile, than for the people that they harm. And that's ass backwards. Like that's completely upside down. The primary empathy, the primary sympathy should be with the person that was harmed. Don't you think? Not with their abuser. I mean, I'm all for having a system where redemption is possible. I'm all for having a system where maybe people can somehow still come back from that and be redeemed. I don't think that's possible in every case, but I like having a system where that's at least possible. But I mean, Jesus Christ, our sympathy should be primarily with the survivor, right? Not with the perpetrator. That's completely ass backwards. But yeah, if you're a rich white guy, if you're an upstanding pillar of the community, if you're a priest or a member of a religious community that is in that is in good standing, oh, we'll find every excuse to salvage you. Yeah, it sucks. It's terrible. Some random geek, Steve, what would you do when you reach over 100,000 subscribers? I'll leave my plaque in the box because considering how shitty YouTube is and how many fucking terrible people have those 100,000 subscriber plaques, I don't know if I would really want to hang that up. You know, not yet, not right now, not while people who, not while such shitty people have them and are still on the network. I don't know. What could I do for 100,000 subscribers? What would be like a cool thing that I could do, like a special one-time only thing that I could do to celebrate? I mean, I would imagine I would at least have like a special live stream, but not just one of these, but like a special celebratory event, where we could hang out in the live chat. Maybe I could have some people on with me who I don't normally get to talk to on the air and do something like that. But I don't know. I have no idea. It hasn't really crossed my mind. Billy suggests Twister. Probably not. Progressive Liberal says, when Steve gets to 100,000 subscribers, he has to travel back in time and tell his past self to start a YouTube channel to complete the time paradox. Now that is a good idea. Here's one from Tony Blakeway. I like this one. Given what's happened to Carl Gone, meaning Carl Benjamin, since appearing with Kevin Christie, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 100, how happy are you at his pending demise? Oh, it's at least a 100. I'm far happier about it than I'm letting on publicly. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I don't want to jinx it. I'm still just superstitious enough that I don't want to jinx it, but I'm absolutely delighted by everything that's happening to him. Every fish that gets flung in his face, every milkshake that gets tossed over his fucking head makes me even happier. Every event he has where there's like 3 people who are probably going to vote for him and 10 times that many protesters. And, I think that's every time he gets invited onto a chat show on TV and utterly humiliated and dragged. I think it's great. I think it's absolutely wonderful because it's just a 100th of the pain and humiliation that he deserves because he's a total piece of shit. And I have nothing but contempt for him. And any bad thing you could imagine happening to him, I would think, yeah, he's got that coming. So I'm loving it. I'm loving it. But I'm trying to keep it in. I'm trying to keep it inside, Not Not because it's classy, or because fuck that. I'm not, just so I don't jinx it. You know what I mean? You don't talk about the no-hitter while your pitcher is throwing a no-hitter. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I just got another super chat from Humbilly, and I'll go back to another question I just saw. About my question, it started with the F-bomb. You see there's a Trump-looking cap with the words, "Make America Great Britain Again." Understand? Yeah. Yeah. Make America Great Britain Again. Yes, yes. I mean, I don't know. Britain has its own problems, but they're probably doing better than we are. So, you know, are you, is Britain going to come and reclaim us? Is that what's going to happen? Let's see. Okay, here is it. Plasma burn death. Can you comment on how you were wrong and the protesting businesses boycotting them worked? Brunei backed off and reversed their position. Boycotts work, my friend. No gay executions. Yeah, you know what? Yes, absolutely. That did work. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And they did back off. So yeah, I can't remember specifically what I said, but if I did say that boycotts of that kind didn't work, and I take your word for it that I did, then yes, I was absolutely wrong. I was absolutely wrong. And you look, I mean, I'm all for boycotting Saudi Arabia. Like, I don't think WWE should run shows there. I don't know how effective it will be in changing their position, but I think just as a matter of morality, I don't think we should be doing business with people who have such brutal oppression of LGBTQ people and women, and, you know, Muslims who are the wrong kind of Muslim, and have fucking public beheadings, for Christ's sake, and have journalists murdered and all the other shitty things that the Saudi regime does. I just, you know, just as a matter of principle, I don't think we should be doing business with that kind of a government, whether it causes them to change or not. So yeah, yes, fair play. It worked for Brunei, and I'm very glad it did. David Colby, would you be interested in a Star Trek series about the Makos or Starfleet Marines? Not, I mean, that just by itself, that premise doesn't really interest me. But if it was a good show, I mean, I'll watch anything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not necessarily all that interested in a Section 31 show, but I'll watch it. And there's every possibility that it'll be great. And if it's great, I'll think it's great. You know what I mean? Like, I'll enjoy it. But it's not something I would necessarily ask for. Like, if you asked me to make a list of ideas for Star Trek shows, I probably wouldn't put a Mako show on the list, because I'm just not that interested in it. But if somebody made it and it turned out to be the fucking shit, then great. I would watch the hell out of it. Adam Rainstopper. So listen, Steve, I've dyed my hair blue. I'm going to college and majoring in Western Civ and the destruction thereof. Will you conspire with me? What does that mean? Do I have to dye my hair blue? Because I'm not doing that. But yes, you have to give me the details of the conspiracy, and I will certainly consider conspiring with you. Cropsy 2008. Hi, Steve. Do you think if Trek was shown in schools every day, humankind would benefit? I genuinely do. It shaped me. I don't think it would hurt. I don't think it would hurt at all. I would love if they showed episodes of Star Trek in school, like every morning before the announcements. That would be fantastic. I don't think it would have a negative impact. Joe McClory, do you know if the economy of the Federation is stated to be moneyless before replicators were introduced in TNG? That's another interesting thing that you could talk about if I did that video, I guess that I could talk about. It's not clear when the transition happens, because in classic Trek, they are still using money. They speak of credits. There's still some kind of currency being exchanged in the Federation during classic Trek. And then by the time you get to TNG, at some point in TNG, they just sort of decided there's no money. But they never made it clear exactly when that transition happened. So yeah, I don't know if it was replicators and the end. Oh, excuse me, the end of scarcity or what. Super chat from Sean Hartley. Thank you, Sean. I want to shout out the most amazing woman in America right now, Amanda Gwen, founder of Rise, helping so many victims of rape. Amazing. Thank you, Sean, for the super chat, and thank you for using it to give Amanda Wen a shout out, because that is, I agree. That's terrific. And I think I'm pronouncing Amanda's last name correctly. Let me see. Tulsa01, howdy, Steve. For someone who has watched all of TOS, TNG, DS9, and Voyager, should I watch Enterprise? Plus, how much would it add to the lore? Does it add to the Star Trek universe overall? Yeah, it adds a little bit. It adds, yeah. I mean, I think Enterprise contributes to the lore. Sure, there are some things that are introduced in Enterprise that are sort of interesting. Yeah, I think I mean, look, Enterprise is not my favorite. I think Enterprise overall is not a great show, or even a good show a lot of the time. But yeah, if you're a Star Trek fan, I think you should at least watch it once. You know, I mean, it's there. If you're looking for fresh Star Trek, if you've watched everything already and you don't feel like going back and rewatching TNG or DS9 or Voyager or whatever again, yeah, give Enterprise a shot. And look, if you don't like it after a few episodes, you can just stop watching it. You don't have to watch the whole thing. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I would at least give it a shot. Sure. Eleni Arcady, have you heard of or watched Shield of Tomorrow? I have heard of it, but I have not watched it. I think someone mentioned it in a previous Ask Away stream, and I think I heard about it somewhere before that too, but I've never watched it. John Brockman, who was your first subscriber? I don't remember who my first subscriber overall was. I think my first subscriber to my current channel was my friend Harold. I think, and my friend Harold, who I have met in person twice, I think, who lives up in Vermont, I believe. Harold's an old friend and one of my earliest acquaintances and supporters on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure Harold was the first official subscriber to this channel. So thanks, Harold. Let's see. Hey, Steve, another one from some random geek. Criminal anarchy is a thing in 13 states in the U.S. and at the federal level. What should a revolutionist like me do that want to dismantle the state in order to end capitalism? I really think you're asking the wrong person, since I've said before that I think we should pursue things short of revolution before we get to the point of revolution. I don't know. There surely you know people who are better equipped to answer the question than I. I honestly don't know. Another super chat from Wellington Smith. Thank you, Wellington. That's very nice. And the question is, have you seen the new She-Ra, The Princesses of Power? What do you think about its portrayal of diversity? Full disclosure, I'm obsessed with the LGBTQIA inclusion and girl power. Yes, I have now seen all of the episodes. I watched the second season a couple weeks ago, I think, and it's short. It's only 7 or 8 episodes, but apparently there's more coming this summer, which is really cool. Yes, I really like the new She-Ra, and I say that as a huge fan of the original He-Man, and I also watched the original She-Ra when it was on as well, because I just could not get enough when I was a kid, and so I'm a big fan of the original, and I think the new one is outstanding. And yes, I love the inclusiveness of it. I love the diversity of it. I love the fact that it's diverse in terms of the characters on screen and also behind the scenes, the creators of it. It's not just a bunch of white dudes making it, which I think is wonderful. And yeah, I think it's a great show and a great example of making a show like that is inclusive. And I love the fact that it's a kid's show. I really hope that it's not just a bunch of middle-aged people watching the show and thinking, oh, what a great show. I really hope that there are young kids of all genders, not just little girls, because it's easy, it's stereotypical to say, oh, it's a little girl show. I really hope that there are kids of all genders watching this show and having this be part of their formative experience. Because it's not necessarily always a good thing if TV plays a formative role in your development. But if you do watch TV as a child and it does have an influence on you, I mean, if you watch a show that is positive and progressive and can instill values like appreciating and valuing diversity in you at a young age, like, that is a wonderful thing. So I really hope that there are kids watching it, who are asking their parents if they can watch Netflix and watching this new She-Ra, because I think it's a really wonderful show, and would be especially good for kids to watch. Joe McClory says, ask away with, I have to scroll back up. Ask away with Jason and Varjak. Yeah, that might be something for the 100,000 subscribers. There's one that I missed from Humbilly. Sorry, Humbilly, a super chat that says, imagine in America with Trump as a PM like Great Britain. Yeah, no. Prime Minister's questions will be fun. Sam Briskin, what do you think of the thesis for the Trek Actually video about the concentration camps at the border being, hey, past tense is happening now? Yeah, that might be something. That's something I'm definitely going to have to look at. For if I do, I could say like, did Star Trek Deep Space Nine actually predict the world we're living in now, or something like that? And the thesis could be comparing the current border crisis to the what do they call them? The sanctuary districts in past tense. Yeah, something like that would probably be the way to go. Adam Rainstopper, again on the dyeing the hair. So you won't do blue, even though you're probably sleeping in that hat. Can we get pink for the revolution, or is that too much of a sacrifice? Yes, it is too much of a sacrifice. No, I'm just too much of a square. No, I'm not dyeing my hair. I'm way too much of a square to do it. So I'm sorry, but I'm not dyeing my hair any color for any reason. But I appreciate you asking, and I'm sorry that I've disappointed you. Okay, yes, this is a good one from Plasma Burn Death. Kirk does say in the voyage home that they had no money. So that might be the first mention of it. That might be the first indication that the Federation has a moneyless economy. So we should say at least by the time we get to voyage home era, but by the time we get to movie era classic Trek, they have transitioned out of an economy with money. Here's a super chat from Humbilly. Wow, $50 Canadian. Thank you. That is very generous. The U.S. federal system allows lobbyists to chat with the representatives. What part of this is capitalism? If the government wasn't allowed to give any favors to any private company through legislation, would that help or harm U.S. capitalism? Well, it would certainly harm the kind of abusive, predatory capitalism that we have now. I mean, whether you want capitalism or some kind of other economy, I don't think that we should have a system that allows lobbyists such easy access to legislators and allows them to basically bribe legislators in so many words as easily as they do. Whether you're pro or anti-capitalist, whatever, I think we should get rid of that. And yeah, I think getting rid of that would certainly make capitalism better in a lot of ways. Christy says milkshake or cow poo. I guess we're talking about Carl Benjamin. I mean, cow poo would be fine with me too. It just, pig slop. Like you can't come up with something that somebody could throw on him that I would go, oh, that's too far, because he's fucking garbage. I would not care. I don't care what happens to him. I don't care what happens to him. I'm not telling anybody to go do anything in particular. I'm not trying to incite anything. I'm not saying go out and do this. But if I open the newspaper tomorrow and something awful happened to him, I'm not going to feel the least bit sorry, because he's a piece of fucking garbage. Let me see. Okay, just a few minutes left. So I'm going to try to sort of scroll through the chat here. And again, if I miss your question, it's nothing personal. I apologize. How about a septum ring? No, I'm not going to do a septum ring either. I'm not going to do a septum ring or any kind of piercing or anything. John Brockman, how hard should we kill capitalism? I mean, if we're going to kill it, we should kill it all the way, right? Trans gamer girl in Encounter at Farpoint, Dr. Crusher is attempting to buy things at the station's market. Yes, see? Yeah. What about that? What's she spending? What's she buying it with? And they pay for drinks at Quarks when Starfleet officers go to Quarks and order drinks. Like somebody's paying for that, right? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if there's ever been a scene of like O'Brien throwing, like a slip of gold pressed latinum down on the bar, but he's obviously being reimbursed somehow, right? Like they're not drinking for free. And like Dax is eventually depicted as being quite the Dabo player, and they play for money. So what's she doing with the money? Like, yeah, there's all kinds of questions about how the moneyless economy and the capitalist economy interact. Yeah, bricks would be ideal, Adam says. Yeah, can't argue with that. Yeah, also, we should make it illegal to be able to pay a membership fee to the president to get to talk to him. Absolutely. K.E. Eberhardt, no, I'm not going to dye the beard blue either. Another super chat from Humbilly. Again, thank you very much. So bounties for lobbyists, $1,000 a lobbyist? That seems a little, I don't know. John Brockman, Steve, why are you so boring? It's just the way I was raised, man. It's the way I was brought up. I don't know any other way. They got to me early. They got to me young. Yeah, I guess they use something like a debit card. I don't know. I mean, they see the whole point of Gold Press Latinum. If you know your Deep Space Nine, the thing that makes Gold Press Latinum special in such a sought after currency is that it can't be replicated. So it can't be that the Federation is just replicating gold press latinum to pay for shit. They must be replicating other valuable goods that the Ferengi need or that these other economies need and sort of maybe doing some kind of a barter system. But yeah, it's very confusing. Oh, Sean, did you send me another super chat that you missed? That you missed? That I missed? Let me scroll back and see. Oh, okay, yes. Thoughts on the Allison Mack, Kevin Rainieri, Nexium thing. Yeah. That is such a weird story. And I'm sorry to everybody who's still sending in questions, but I'm going to answer Sean's super chat question and then I'll wrap things up. Because I'm past 90 minutes now. So yeah, the Allison Mack Nexium thing is such a weird, depressing story. I was a huge fan of Smallville for like the first 4 or 5 seasons or so, and then I kind of just stopped watching it, and I kind of had a crush on Allison Mack, to be honest. I kind of really liked Allison Mack, and it was just so. And then I forgot about her, and I forgot about the show, and I didn't watch it anymore. And then like the next thing I knew, there was this story last year about how she's involved in some kind of weird violent sex cult, and was trying to like recruit other members of the Smallville cast. Like she was pitching it to Kristen Krug and trying to get her involved in it too. And it's just like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. Like, is nothing sacred? My Superman show? So yeah, it's a really weird, depressing, awful story. Clearly she should go to prison. Like, I mean, if the charges against her are true, and I suspect they are, I mean, clearly she needs to go to prison for a while. Like that's that Nexium thing was fucked up. I mean, carving people's initials into your skin and having basically like sex slavery rings. Like it's just Jesus. It's just not cool. So yeah, it's just a very, very alarming, depressing story. Yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Chloe needs to go to jail. That's my thoughts on it. Or Chloe needs to go to jail. I'm sorry, Chloe. This hurts me. But you need to go. You need to go up the river. Okay, one more super chat from Humbilly. Thank you. Paying contract killers isn't part of capitalism. Is it not good capitalism? Well, I mean, I'm sure there are some ruthless capitalists who might say, why shouldn't you be able to hire someone to kill somebody? Perhaps. Okay, that's it for the questions. That's it for the show. Thank you to everybody who asked a question, whether you were a patron who asked it earlier or you asked it here in the chat. I really, really, really appreciate everybody coming and watching and talking with me. I really appreciate the support. If I didn't answer your question, I super apologize. It's nothing personal. I just didn't see it in the chat. This is something that I do every 2 weeks. And if you want to ask a question and you want to make sure that your question gets answered, if you are a Patreon patron, you can ask a question early. I post a call for questions on my Patreon page the Monday before one of these, and you can leave a comment and ask a question there, and I will be sure to answer all of my patron questions at the beginning of the show. So that's something you can do. And whether you do that or not, if you enjoy these videos that I make, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives and become a supporter of the channel there if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it. And I appreciate all of my patrons so much. I literally could not do this without them. And also, if you like the podcast, or if you like the YouTube stuff, you might enjoy my podcast. I co-host a couple of podcasts along with the wonderful Jason Harding at LetMeListenPodcast.com. The shows we do together are Late Seating, the movie review podcast, and the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek-themed improv comedy podcast. There is a new episode of the Ensign's Log that just went up today. So go check it out. The links are in the description box. You can subscribe via RSS, listen on the website, listen wherever you listen to your podcast. Brand new Ensign's Log up today. And especially if you like the Trek Actually videos, I think you'll really enjoy the Ensign's Log. So there we have it. That's it. thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for coming along with me for another edition of Ask Away. And I will see you in 2 weeks to do this all over again. Take care, everybody. Have a good evening.